Satan had won. At least that is what he thought. The Son of God was dead, sealed in a tomb, guarded by Roman soldiers, 3 days, 72 hours, and what the enemy did with that time would change eternity forever. To understand what happened in the invisible world during those 3 days, you need to go back a few hours, to Friday, to 3 in the afternoon, to the exact moment when the heart of Jesus stopped beating on a hill outside Jerusalem. The sky went dark for 3 hours. The earth shook. The rocks split apart. The veil of the temple, a curtain approximately 60 feet tall and as thick as the palm of a hand, tore from top to bottom. Not from bottom to top, as a man would do. From top to bottom, as only God could. The Roman soldiers, men trained to kill without flinching, felt fear. The centurion overseeing the execution spoke words no Roman officer should ever have said. He acknowledged that this man was the Son of God. Matthew chapter 27 records it precisely. Mark chapter 15 confirms it. An officer of the most powerful empire on earth had just admitted that Rome had crucified God. But for Satan, none of that mattered. What mattered was that the body was cold. The heart had stopped beating. The blood was no longer flowing. From the enemy's perspective, the war was over. The plan that had begun in Eden, thousands of years before, had finally worked. The serpent had crushed the offspring of the woman. Or so he believed. Put into perspective what those 72 hours meant for the forces of darkness. For approximately 33 years, Satan had tried to destroy Jesus, first through Herod, who ordered the massacre of every male child under 2 years old in Bethlehem and its surroundings. Matthew chapter 2 describes a military operation against infants. Historians estimate that between 20 and 30 children were killed in that massacre, and none of them was the one Herod was looking for. The family had already fled to Egypt. Then came the temptations in the wilderness. 40 days, 40 nights, no food, no water, no shelter. Satan waited until the human body of Jesus was at its most vulnerable point, dehydrated, weakened on the edge of physical collapse, and he offered him everything, the kingdoms of the world, absolute power, instant glory. Luke chapter 4 records each offer. Every temptation was designed with surgical precision to attack the human nature of Christ. Jesus rejected it all. During the 3 years of public ministry, Satan changed his strategy. If he could not corrupt him, he would destroy him through others. The Pharisees became unwitting instruments. The Sadducees added political pressure. The very inhabitants of Nazareth tried to throw him off a cliff. Luke chapter 4 verses 28 through 30 describes how an enraged mob dragged Jesus to the edge of a precipice, but he walked right through the crowd and left. Every attempt had failed, every trap had been dodged, every attack had bounced off, until Friday. Think about the sequence from the enemy's perspective. Judas, one of the 12 closest to Jesus, betrayed his master for 30 pieces of silver. The price of a slave, according to Exodus chapter 21. Satan personally entered Judas, as recorded in Luke chapter 22, verse 3. It was not a distant influence. It was direct possession. The devil went all in on that move. And it worked. The arrest in Gethsemane was brutal. A detachment of between 200 and 600 Roman soldiers, accompanied by temple guards, arrived with torches, lanterns, and weapons to arrest a single man. John chapter 18 specifies it was a cohort. The disproportion was absurd. Hundreds of armed men against an unarmed carpenter. Peter tried to resist. He cut off the ear of Malchus, servant of the high priest. Jesus restored it. It was his last miracle before dying. And then he surrendered voluntarily. But there was something Satan did not understand at that moment. The trials were a legal farce without precedent. 6 trials in fewer than 18 hours. 3 Jewish trials, before Annas, before Caiaphas, before the Sanhedrin. 3 Roman trials, before Pilate, before Herod Antipas, back before Pilate. Each one violated the Jewish and Roman laws in force at the time. Night trials were forbidden. Trials during festivals were forbidden. Self-incrimination as the sole evidence was forbidden. None of it mattered. The machinery of destruction was already in motion. Roman flagellation was a punishment designed to bring the human body to the exact boundary between life and death. The Roman flagrum had between 2 and 3 leather straps, each fitted with pieces of bone or metal at the tips. Each strike ripped away skin, muscle, and in some cases left the ribs exposed. Forensic physicians estimate that a man subjected to full flagellation lost between 1.5 and 2 liters of blood during the scourging alone. Jesus endured this complete torture before carrying a crossbeam weighing approximately 75 to 90 pounds toward Golgotha. At 9 in the morning on Friday, the nails pierced his wrists and his feet. Not the palms, as popular art suggests. The wrists. Nails between 6 and 7 inches long penetrated the space of destot between the carpal bones. The pain was so extreme that medicine had to invent a new word to describe it: excruciating, from the Latin excruciatus, literally from the cross, 6 hours on the cross. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, a supernatural darkness covered the entire land. 3 hours of darkness that did not correspond to any eclipse recorded by astronomy. Luke chapter 23 documents it. Matthew chapter 27 confirms it. It was not a natural phenomenon, it was a cosmic sign. And then Jesus spoke his final words: "It is finished." In Greek, tetelestai, an accounting term that meant the debt had been paid in full. He did not say, "I am finished." He said, "It is finished." And he gave up his spirit voluntarily. No one took his life from him. He laid it down. John chapter 10 verse 18 had anticipated it with absolute clarity. For Satan, that was the moment of victory. The body was taken down from the cross. Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Sanhedrin who had voted against the conviction, offered his personal tomb, a new tomb hewn from solid rock where no one had ever been laid before. Nicodemus brought approximately 75 pounds of myrrh and aloes to prepare the body. It was an amount reserved for royal burials. They wrapped the body in linen strips with the spices. They rolled a stone weighing approximately 1.5 tons in front of the entrance. Sealed, guarded, finished. But what happened next changed everything Satan believed he had conquered. The biblical texts provide fragments of what took place during those 72 hours in the invisible realm, and each fragment is devastating for the forces of darkness. 1 Peter chapter 3 verses 18 through 20 reveals that Christ, put to death in the flesh but made alive in the spirit, went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. The Greek word used is ekarixon, which does not mean to evangelize. It means to proclaim, to make an official announcement, like a herald entering enemy territory and declaring the king's victory. Picture the scene from the perspective of the darkness. The body of Jesus lay motionless in the tomb. The demons were celebrating. The forces of hell were organizing their victory parade. And suddenly, in the very heart of their territory, the spirit of the man they had just killed appeared. But he did not come as a prisoner. He came as a conqueror. Colossians chapter 2, verses 14 and 15 describes what happened with a brutality that modern translations barely managed to capture. Christ cancelled the record of debt that stood against humanity with its legal demands and set it aside, nailing it to the cross. And he disarmed the rulers and authorities, put them to open shame, and triumphed over them in it. The Greek word for disarmed is apekdisamenos. It means to strip completely, to tear the armor off the enemy, to leave him naked and exposed. The word for put to open shame is edigmatizon. It means to make a public spectacle, like a Roman general parading his prisoners of war in chains through the streets of Rome. Satan was not celebrating a victory. He was being paraded as a prisoner of war, and he did not realize it until it was too late. The Apostle Paul uses an image that any first-century citizen would have recognized immediately: the Roman triumph. When a Roman general achieved a decisive victory, he entered Rome in a ceremonial procession. Enemy prisoners marched in chains behind his chariot. The spoils of war were displayed before the people. It was the ultimate humiliation for the defeated and the ultimate glory for the victor. Christ did exactly that in the invisible world during those 3 days, but Satan's humiliation did not end there. Hebrews chapter 2 verses 14 and 15 adds another layer to what happened. Christ shared in flesh and blood so that through death he might destroy the one who holds the power of death, that is, the devil. The Greek word for destroy is katargis. It does not mean to annihilate. It means to render powerless, to make useless, to make inoperative. Satan was not eliminated during those 3 days. He was disarmed. His most powerful weapon, death, was neutralized from the inside. Think about what that means. Satan had used death as his supreme tool throughout all of human history. Since Adam and Eve, death was the irrefutable evidence of his power. Every funeral, every tomb, every tear shed over a cold body was a reminder that the serpent had won in Eden. Death was his trophy, his final argument, his proof that humanity was condemned, and Christ ripped it away from him by using it against him. It was as if a general had taken the enemy's greatest weapon, dismantled it piece by piece, and displayed it as scrap metal in front of the entire enemy army. Death no longer belonged to Satan. Death was now a corridor, not a final destination, but there was more. Much more. Ephesians chapter 4 verses 8 through 10 quotes Psalm 68 and applies it to Christ. When he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. And it adds that he also first descended into the lower parts of the earth. Theologians have debated for centuries the exact meaning of this descent. What the text establishes clearly is that Christ did not remain passive. During his death, he descended, he acted, he conquered, and when he ascended, he did not go up alone. He led captivity captive. That phrase is more devastating than it appears on first reading. It means that Christ went to the place where souls were held captive and freed the captives. He took prisoners from the prisoner. He robbed the thief. He entered the strong man's house, bound him, and plundered his goods, exactly as he had promised in Matthew chapter 12, verse 29. Satan did not only lose the battle, he lost the spoils. Now grasp what this meant for the devil in real time. Every hour that passed within those 72 hours was worse than the one before. First, he discovered that the dead man was not dead. Then he discovered that the supposed prisoner was actually the judge. Then he watched as his armor was ripped from him. Then he was paraded publicly as a war trophy. And finally, he watched as the souls he had held captive for millennia were taken from his territory. Every hour was a new defeat. Every moment revealed a new dimension of the trap he had fallen into. Because that is exactly what the cross was, a trap. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 8 says it with a clarity that cuts like a scalpel. If the rulers of this age had understood the wisdom of God, they would never have crucified the Lord of glory. The word rulers here in Greek archonton does not refer only to Pilate and Herod. It refers to the spiritual principalities operating behind them. Satan and his forces orchestrated the crucifixion, believing they were destroying their enemy. In reality, they were activating the mechanism of their own destruction. It is as if someone had planted a bomb believing it would destroy the enemy's fortress, and the bomb destroyed his own. The cross was not an accident. It was not a defeat that God turned into victory at the last moment. It was the plan from before the foundation of the world. Revelation chapter 13, verse 8, describes Jesus as the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, before Adam breathed, before the serpent spoke, before sin existed. The plan was already designed. Satan played exactly the card that God knew he would play. And this is where the narrative reaches its most terrifying dimension for the forces of evil. During those 3 days, not only was a military victory consummated, a legal document was signed. Colossians chapter 2 describes it as the cancellation of the record of debt that stood against humanity. In the Roman world, a certificate of debt was publicly displayed when it was paid in full. It was nailed in a visible place with the inscription Tetelestai, paid, finished. Exactly the word Jesus spoke on the cross. The debt that Satan used as a legal argument against every human being was cancelled, nailed to the cross, displayed as paid, the accuser of the brethren, as Revelation chapter 12 verse 10 calls him, lost his accusation, not because the debt did not exist, but because someone paid it. 33 years of a perfect life, 6 hours on the cross, 72 hours of invisible conquest, and then Sunday came. Matthew chapter 28 describes the scene with details that reveal the terror of the enemy forces. A great earthquake shook the earth. An angel descended from heaven, approached the tomb, rolled away the stone, and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning and his clothing white as snow. The Roman guards, soldiers trained for war, trembled with fear and became like dead men. Roman soldiers, men who had conquered nations, who had marched into enemy territory without retreating, who had been trained to die before they fled. Those men fell to the ground like corpses in the presence of a single angel. The tomb was empty, not because someone had stolen the body. The Roman seals were intact before the angel intervened. The guard was at its post. The stone weighed approximately 1.5 tons. No group of Galilean fishermen could have moved it without waking an entire military garrison. The tomb was empty because its occupant decided to walk out. And with that exit, everything that had occurred during the 3 previous days was confirmed. The proclamation to the imprisoned spirits was validated. The disarming of the principalities was sealed. The cancellation of the record of debt was ratified. The captivity of captivity was completed. Every invisible act carried out between Friday and Sunday received its final signature with an open grave and a risen body. Satan did not lose the war on Sunday, he lost it on Friday. Sunday was simply the public announcement of a defeat that had already been consummated in the darkness. The disciples did not understand this immediately. Mary Magdalene was the first to arrive at the tomb and thought someone had stolen the body. Peter and John ran to the sepulchre and found the linen cloths folded, but they did not comprehend. Thomas refused to believe for 8 more days. The disciples on the road to Emmaus walked miles alongside the risen Christ without recognizing him, but Satan understood. He was the first to grasp the magnitude of what had happened. He did not need to see the empty tomb. He already knew. He had felt every blow during those 3 days. He had watched as the power over death was torn from him. He had witnessed the liberation of the captives. He had experienced the public humiliation of being paraded as a war trophy, and he knew there was no going back. Revelation chapter 12 verse 12 sums it up with a phrase that reveals the mental state of the enemy after the resurrection. The devil has come down to you with great wrath, knowing that his time is short. It is not the wrath of someone who is winning. It is the wrath of someone who has already lost and knows it. It is the desperate fury of an enemy who knows his sentence but has not yet seen it carried out. Since that Sunday, every attack from Satan is the movement of a defeated army that still has the capacity to cause damage, but has lost all possibility of winning the war. Every temptation he throws is from someone who knows the clock is running against him. Every lie he plants is from someone who knows the truth and fears it. 3 days, 72 hours changed the entire structure of the spiritual universe. The one who held the power of death was stripped of it. The one who accused humanity day and night lost his accusation. The one who kept souls captive watched as they were carried out of his territory. The one who believed he had won discovered he had fallen into the most perfect trap ever designed. Since that Sunday, Satan knows how the story ends. He has read the final chapter. Revelation describes his fate with details he cannot alter. The lake of fire, the final defeat, the eternal humiliation before all creation. 3 days, that was all he had. 3 days between the cross and the empty tomb. 3 days of illusion. Since then, his every move is that of a defeated enemy who has not yet been captured. The clock keeps running, and he knows it. What remains is not what Satan did during those 3 days. It is what he lost in them. Everything.